Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Moms with Trauma and Unpopular Opinions. We are really hopeful that this video is recording, and when this is released, you'll get to see our beautiful faces for the very first time.
Oh, that's gonna be we just talked about how that might be the hardest part, but, um,
Yes.
welcome back, everybody. Excited to be here. Excited to be back at it.
So just bear with us with this whole video process thing. I mean, it's our first time doing this. So we're with time, I'm sure it'll get better, but we're here to be real, right?
Yes. Hopefully, I can control my face a little bit and not be so awkward when I'm sitting here. Usually when we're recording, I'm, like, fiddling with my hands or, like, doing something, so I'm trying not to,
Right?
I'm definitely
Uh,
ADHD, so you might see me swinging a little bit.
but that's good. We're just being ourselves, and that's the whole point of this, right?
Yeah, that's the whole point. So today we are going to be talking about our experiences as working moms and the double
And what that
standard of it all.
means, yes, what that means
Yeah,
to us. We have lots to say, but like always.
we both have a chronic problem of not shutting the fuck up. Um,
And that's why we did a podcast.
yeah, I actually it's so funny because I seen a post the other day that was like, "You guys are so lucky I don't have a podcast because I have so much to say," and I was like, "Oh shit, I have a podcast." And I do have a lot to say.
I do have a lot to say, I know, and I feel like even with that, I feel like we still hold back, right? Because there's some stuff that you're like, "Oh, I just" as much as we wanna say is what's on our minds, some things probably are filtered a little bit because, like, you don't know
Mhm.
who's listening, and yeah, sometimes I wish I could really say everything that's on my mind, but
Yeah, I think that's something that I struggle with too is, like, the balance of, like, some things are private, some things are, like, opinions I do wanna share. Um,
mhm, mhm.
so it's something that I'm
Well,
trying to, like,
anyway,
navigate.
cheers for us being back recording together, by the way. Cling cling. I mean, I think I don't know if there's water or alcohol in there, but
Water.
okay. I got my rosé. I'm being really like elegant here, but
I'm just aiming for hydration today.
it's a good goal.
Yeah.
That's important.
Well, I figure since, it's been a hot minute since I've sat in the seat that I'll give a quick little update on,
Hmm.
myself. I know I mentioned that on, social media that I'm gonna be taking a little bit of a step back. Things in my life have been just a little crazy, and this is why I also wanted to come and talk about, being a working mom and all the stuff that that entails. But, I'm a full-time employee, full-time mother, um, full-time
Hmm.
partner, daughter, whatever other title you can think of.
Hmm.
I'm probably that. So, um, and a lot of it has just a lot of it has just caught up to me, and that perpetual balancing act has been really tricky lately. So I find I'm dropping the ball in some areas, and I don't mean to. It's part of the ADHD too. Is either all in or I'm all out, and I don't mean to be all out, but I have
No,
options
but
issues.
I think it's life, and like a lot
Hmm.
of people will be able to resonate with that of like, oh, trying to over explain yourself or like where you're at or like
Hmm.
why you're not being present in whatever area. It's like you feel like you have to explain that you're busy or you're
Hmm.
but really it's just like you're doing life and you're prioritizing things that need to be prioritized and just
Yeah,
is what it is.
and just to be frank too, like the season, not like necessarily like the season of life, the actual like weather season of winter is usually pretty hard for me anyway too. Like um I get seasonal affective disorder messes me up every year, no matter how much vitamin D I take or water or sunshine I try to get. I literally like sit in my office at work in front of the window like a cat sunbathing, like trying to like get as much of the good sunshine energy as I
Yeah.
can. But seasonal affective
Mhm.
disorder
Mhm.
really takes the feet out from under me. Today I noticed that the sun didn't go like it was like quarter to 7 and it was still light out, and I was literally, like, emotional because I was like, "Oh my god, I did it. I made it through another, like, dark season of
I know
life,"
it's
and
so nice. Oh, it's so nice to see the sun out again. I'm just, like, so anxious for spring and summer, like, to be able to be
oh,
outside.
literally, I'm so excited for that part. So that's, like, as much detail as I do feel like going into just around,
Yeah.
what's been going on with me. But, Tara has some exciting things she wants to do on her own, and I'm super supportive of that.
Yeah.
Hopefully, you know, make some more time, especially as the weather gets nicer and maybe some things
Mhm.
in life get less busy, but,
Yeah,
not going
and
anywhere.
we'll do what we can. We'll do what we can together. I
Mhm.
want to keep having you part of this process and, like, I like having you part of it, and we started it together, and I mean, we bring so much to what we both do in different aspects, so it's like but I don't want like I said from our other our private messages of, like, I don't want you to feel, like, obligated or, like, whatever, like, it's, whatever you can do, and I'm gonna understand.
Oh, yeah.
So, even if even though I'm on maternity leave and I'm gonna try to dedicate more time, like, I'm also gonna be not always super present on social media or releasing episodes because I'm also, like, super busy being a mom and all the things that come with it, so but I would really like to, record some episodes with, you know, some folks, some friends, some other podcasters. We have, some really exciting things in the works.
Uh,
Maybe we'll just keep to ourselves for now,
yeah.
but, like, yeah, it's gonna be fun.
Yeah, I'm super excited. So I know I mentioned like that idea of me like taking a back seat or whatever. It's just I think too like it's just good for us to be clear too about like what our expectations are around the podcast. Like
Mhm.
I feel like both of us were kind of like I don't know if I can post like if they're okay with it or like if I'm okay with it or
Mm,
whatever. But I'm glad that we kind of got that like kind of
yeah.
like clear for each other, right? Like I
Mhm.
want you to do
Like, do what you wanna do and
yeah.
yeah. Like,
Worst case is if
it's the
it's a
exact
really
same thing.
yeah, if it's like a super controversial opinion, just make sure you don't put my name on it.
I'll
'Cause if
just,
it
like,
co
be like, "I say this." No.
yeah, this does not represent Kennedy 'cause,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
you know, I've said in the past, like, sometimes, if when I say controversial opinions, I do mean stuff more so about politics, not that I have controversial opinions, I'm not allowed to talk about my political stances online because of my job,
Yeah, well, probably me
but
too. I work for the government, so I probably should, like,
yeah,
tone it down a bit, but anyway.
yeah, it's just in that nature.
Um, yeah, but for my side of, like, what's new with me, I guess, like, same old, not really same old, but, like, just getting by day, doing mom things. I stopped my breastfeeding journey, though.
Okay,
Yeah, it was getting really tough. My anxiety was super bad, dealing with Deemer and just everything. It was like she wasn't latching great. She wasn't really wanting it. And I was like, I'm not putting this pressure on myself. I'm actually totally okay with not doing it. Like, it actually gives me more relief because, like, my husband can help out more. Um, and it just made sense for us. And I didn't have to like grieve it. I wasn't emotional about it. I like wanted to be. I was like, oh my God, I should be emotional about this, but like I wasn't.
yeah,
So that's when I knew that it was okay.
yeah. Well, I'm super proud of
Um,
you because I know
yeah,
that anxiety around breastfeeding can be really intense. So I'm really proud of you for
mhm,
choosing to do what was best for you and not
thank
like so
you.
I know that people will always reference like you got to do what's best for the baby too, but like your mental health is super important and
Mhm.
I'm really proud of you for prioritizing that and not putting this pressure on yourself this time around. And I do think it's
Yeah,
important to
well,
say
that's
that
it.
like a baby isn't gonna remember if they're breastfed or bottle fed. They're not
Well,
gonna remember if you co-slept
exactly.
or if they sleep trained, like,
No,
they're gonna remember a happy mom, and at the end of the day,
that's it. Like,
you owe it to yourself, and I'm proud of you.
it's only me that's gonna remember all of this
Mhm.
or not. Like, I don't wanna have resent, like I
Yeah,
did with Evie. I don't wanna be miserable. I don't remember the first year of Evie's life. Like, I forced myself to do so many things because of all these expectations. Um, yeah, so, like, with my, it's It's like I'm getting like a second chance, in a way, of like this first year, that first year thing. And I know I did a good job with Evie. I'm not saying I like failed or like whatever. It's just with me, like I'm just doing things differently. I'm being more conscious about what I'm doing and like doing it on my terms. It's like at the end of the day, the baby's happy, baby's good. Like, so yeah, I'm just checking with myself and like doing what's best for me and not giving a fuck about anything else, about anyone else thinks.
Yeah, that's super fucking important too. So I'm proud of you.
Yeah. And I'm trying to not explain myself when I say I'm not breastfeeding
Mhm.
because I feel like I have to. It's like, oh, because da 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 da. But yeah, no one explains why they formula feed, right? So it's like why we shouldn't have to explain it's whether it's a choice or not, I mean, depending on breastfeeding, bottle feeding, or both, or whatever, like co-sleeping, not like we shouldn't have to hide it or try to over explain it. Like it just is what it is. It's what works for you. So that's
Yeah.
like where I'm at. Yeah.
Well, and that's like the struggle, right? Of like, people drives me crazy because it's like people will comment on whether people will say to a mom who chooses to formula feed, like, oh, it's okay, like fed is best, but they don't say that to people who breastfeed. But sometimes like it's like that it's this whole crazy notion of like just stop commenting on what people do with their children. Because at the end of the day, as moms, we know what's best for our children and for
Mhm.
ourselves. And like I, as I've come into my role as a mom, like I I know what's best for my kid. I've done my research. I've read things. I
Mhm.
also just know what feels right for us at the time. And I will also say that like I truly, truly believe that choices that you make that like promote your happiness and your well like are in line with your well-being too.
Mm.
At the end of the day, it will transfer over and like it'll be it's a better decision for everybody involved. Like your baby's
Mhm.
gonna be happy regardless of if they were breastfed or bottle fed. They're gonna eat they're still gonna be in 3 years eating fucking crashers off the floor that your dogs run all over. So it doesn't matter any like
Exactly. Like, do you want to know what Evie had for during the day today? Like, literally, like half of it was sugar. Like, I don't care. Like, like judge me.
yeah, they're
That was our day today. Like,
oh yeah, Peter's surviving off of fucking crumbs and spite because he won't eat anything. And I'm like, "Cool, okay, so you need to eat food." And he's like, "No, but actually, you know what? That cracker that Sully walked on 5 times looks pretty dope." I'm like,
cool.
"Okay, pop off, dude. That's what you
By the way,
that's what you want."
if you see me constantly like playing with my hair and I'm like going like this, it's because I'm fucking shedding like
Postpartum hair
like a
loss.
dog right now. Yes, and because I stopped breastfeeding
Mhm.
and I'm already like anemic and yada 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 yada. I'm
Yeah.
just the hair loss is
Wild, hey?
scary and wild, and so I'm just sitting here like, "Na, na, 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 na," putting hair on the floor.
I felt really called out because I seen a post that was like, you can tell, how old someone's like, a mom's child is by how long their postpartum hair regrowth is or something, and I felt super fucking called out because like, I have, like, little baby hairs.
The baby hairs?
I'm like, "God damn it."
Oh my
They're not
god, that's
baby hairs
funny.
anymore, they're like almost bangs, essentially.
Oh god, what our body goes through.
Oh
Well,
my god.
yeah, so I guess we can get into it of this, like, topic of and, like, you're the one that kind of introduced it, and I never even thought about I guess I've talked about this so much, but I never thought about it as a discussion on the podcast. It's like it's so controversial in a way too, right? But I feel like it's not talked about as much. It's one of those things that maybe we're not really
Mhm.
that topic hasn't been out there much about this, about our thoughts on the value, I guess, of what moms do throughout a day
Oh,
by
yeah.
society, by each other, by ourselves, like.
Yeah, so this came to me because I am in the thick of it as a mom right now and an employee, as a partner and all of these things, like, um and so, like, this kinda had come to me because I this is and I kinda spoke about it when we were getting into the episode, like, feeling like I'm on this, like, perpetual tightrope of, like, trying to balance everything in my life and, trying to pour into all of these cups and do everything well and, um, you know, still kind of feeling like there's some areas, like, I'm falling short in, and it's just, like, not fair, the amount of pressure that gets put on on moms, like, we've talked about it in the past of, like, being a stay-at-home mom, for example, is, like, that's hard fucking work, and, um if you're not gonna be home to take care of your child, you have to pay somebody to do it. So, like, that in and of itself is, like, pretty telling of, like, the amount of, like, emotional, physical labor that goes into being a
Mm,
stay-at-home mom.
mhm,
Then the added component of, like, when you do go back to work, like, when your maternity leave is over and it's time to rip back the curtains and face reality, and, um, I know I don't know if I never like, I don't think I ever really talked about, like, my experience with, like, fully going back to work. Like, I think I was kinda like I know we had an episode where we did talk about, like, coming back from
work
maternity leave,
yeah, yeah,
um, and I don't remember if I spoke, like, kinda candidly about it, because like,
mm,
I was still at that workplace, and I don't have
mhm,
anything negative to say about the workplace per se. I just was in terms of, like, HR, I guess, I was kinda like, I don't wanna say anything on the
mm,
podcast that could be, like, used against me at work. Um, but I remember, like, your priorities change when you have a child, and that's pretty normal, and, um, it can impact your career, and it can impact the choices that you do make, and I am somebody who is, like, ambitious, driven. I have goals and, like, whatever. And so before I got pregnant with my son, I had been working in, like, a frontline working job, like, working with high-risk Indigenous women, providing services and all of that. And, I was really young when I got the job, and I didn't have children, and I could expend so much energy to that job, and I did.
mhm,
I did. I was really and I but it was fulfilling to me at the time, and I really
mm,
enjoyed it,
mhm,
and I felt like I was making a difference in an area that I really wanted to make a difference in. Obviously, after having my child and realizing the amount of work that was going into that job, I was like, "I cannot go back into that role," as much as it broke my heart. I literally wrote out a huge pros and cons list because I was like,
mm,
"Fuck." It's like, this job meant so much to me, but my son means more. So,
yeah,
I ended up taking a work from home job, and, that balancing of, like, trying to do both and trying to be, like, trying to be as great a mom as I could be, because I know that, I've talked about my experience with, like, almost that pressure I'd put on myself, um, to be the perfect mom and doing everything well. So I was
mhm,
working from home, and that was really hard to, like, my son got sick and I had to stay home, and, um, you know, still worrying about all of the things that, like, go into being a parent, and, you know, feeling like I was, like, falling behind at work in a sense, and then just not feeling fulfilled in my role because I wasn't getting to work to the full capacity, which ended up, um, I ended up going into a different role, at a different organization, but, my priorities really changed, and I I still feel like that, you know so I will say, like, working from home and being a mom was a little bit easier because I could do, you know, in my breaks and, like, in between
mm,
job
mhm,
tasks and whatever, I could still kind of, like, bop around and do some of the things I needed to do. But I always, like, felt like I was kind of disappointing people when it was like, "Oh, I can't do that actually because I
yeah,
don't wanna leave my kid. I don't wanna do that
yeah,
because, like, I don't wanna do all this expensive travel because I wanna be home with my baby." And but
yeah,
the other part of it was I was super anxious about leaving my child with anybody.
mhm,
Um,
mhm,
so I remember feeling like I was really stuck in between, it was like that rock and a hard place of, like, I want to do well at my job. I'm a chronic overachiever. I have been my entire life, and, because of ADHD, people pleasing and all that stuff, but
yeah,
I also wanted to be a good mom, and so feeling like I was stuck between a rock and a hard place,
oh,
between these
yeah,
all of these decisions, and feeling like I'm dropping the ball in all of these areas, and, letting people down because 'cause they're like, "Oh, we're going to
mhm,
travel for work. We want you to come," and, um, all these other things, and just feeling like just wasn't doing great, and I was like, "That
mhm,
kinda sucks." So, I ended up, um, changing jobs. Also, like, part of it too was, like, man, postpartum rocked my shit. I always forget about it until I, like, think about it.
yeah,
I really forget how much, like, and
I
I've said it
know,
before, motherhood, like, changed me at a cellular level. Like, I feel like I don't remember the Kennedy that I was before. I feel like that Kennedy is, like, kind of gone, which is, like, also kinda there was a lot of grief around that too, but,
God, yeah,
um but also not because
I
like, I
when
feel
I
like yeah.
it's like no, I was just gonna say when I think of my time or my experiences with Evie, I always refer to, like, her 2nd year, like, I have a hard time referring to the 1st year of her life, you
Mhm.
know what I mean? Like, I'm, like, talking about things and experiences, and I'm just like, I forget, like,
Yeah.
so, like, same as you, I forget so much, and I was so in the thick of it, and then so when I'm looking back at the 2nd year, I just, like I'm like, "Wait, how old like, what year are we in?" Like, it's going by so fast, and I'm like I'm trying to so hard to remember, like, what year is what and when what happened, like, I feel like I just went back to work last year, but I went back to work for, like, a year and a it's so you know what I mean? Like, you're trying to play catch
Mhm.
up. It just all just happens. It's just like when people say, like, "How do you do it?" You're like, "I just fucking do it." Like, I
I
don't
just
have
do it. There's no process,
don't
there's
have
no nothing.
a secret for you. I don't have a I really don't know. I think we just did it, and
Yeah.
I really don't know. It's it is wild because same as you, I went back to work, and then when her daycare closed, I had to have her home with me 2 days a week, and my job is frontline,
Mhm.
and it's, like, very, like, confidential. I'm in meetings sometimes about, like, people's lives, like, it's like, I work in child protection, so I'm on these serious meetings while, like, Evie's in the background, like, it was so I mean, I'm very privileged and lucky that I was able to do that, that my workplace was very understanding. But I would have rather chose not to do that, like, to just focus on work and, you know, sad to say, but it's just like, it was so tough. I would have rather had her in childcare, but I just thought the best thing for her was not to have her in, like, 3 different daycares. I wanted to transition her to a new daycare that I knew that she would last in. I didn't wanna, like, start
Yeah.
one for 2 months and then
Just keep bouncing
so
around. Yeah.
yeah, I just got through it. It was tough. I remember her, like, shitting herself, and she pooped all over the floor. She came to me, and it was everywhere, and I'm on a meeting with my supervisor, and I'm, like, trying to be like, "Yeah, okay, Effie, 1 second," while there's, like
Yep.
it's
I
like,
remember that
"Oh
too.
my god."
And it was so hard, and, like, I I just feel like I became that, like, really, like, typical stereotype of, like, a person who and there's no shame around it either, though, and I did feel shame around it, like, I got a job and, like, my whole life changed, and I had this job, and then my whole life changed because I had a baby, and then I just wasn't I felt like I wasn't performing the way that I was because my priorities shifted, and I didn't prioritize that job the same way that I prioritized being with my son, and
Mhm, mhm.
I just felt like this it was like that really, really, really tough balancing act, and then, like, on top of it, like, work, and then, like, work like, obviously, like, a job is, like, you know, a huge thing in and of itself, and, it almost makes sense as to why that, like, typical gender role was, like, one of them worked and one was home with the kids because that's what makes the most sense in terms of, like, workload and responsibility. However,
Yeah.
now, like, it's not financially feasible that anyone can really live that way, and, like, I mean, hats off if people can make it work or whatever else, like, I
Mhm.
just know that I can't make it work for me to stay like, for me to stay home. I wish that I could, 'cause, I would love to be able to spend that time with my baby, who is not much of a baby anymore, but
You know what's
he's
funny? You say that? Um, I don't feel bad saying this. I would rather my child be in daycare, and, like, I get excited to not have her
yeah,
here sometimes. Like, if I have a day off or whatever it is, like, sometimes I do feel guilty where I'm like, "Oh, like, I could keep her home, like, why do I have to send her?" But I'm like, "No, like, I need this. She needs this." Like, I'm thinking about it. I'm like, "This is what's best for everybody."
yeah,
Um, so, like, I feel like sometimes that's where I'm different from other people. Like, maybe some people can relate where,
yeah.
um, I'm totally okay with her being in daycare, and
See,
I'm
I
sitting here
say it
doing nothing.
I say it in theory, but I remember how hard it was for me to be home, and I remember so that's something too, like, I think I could probably touch on too is, like, so after, like, those struggles and at that workplace and, like, feeling like I was, like, people were kinda like, "Oh, she's had a kid and it's not the same," or whatever, and, she can't do that, and, like, feeling people were, like, people were being super accommodating to me, but it was also sometimes, like, a little much. I also should have just been able to be like, "I can't do that," or maybe I
Yeah.
shouldn't have agreed to certain things, but anyway, I ended up going into this new job, and this new job has been really great. I noticed a couple of my, coworkers followed the Facebook page, so shout out to them
Uh,
if they're watching. One of them was our HR, so hopefully she's not taking anything I say too seriously, but, um, you know, I've really enjoyed, like, the job that I'm at now, and, like, I did kind of y I did feel obligated to almost say too, like, I have a young son when I did my in like, after like, in the initial stages of, like, meeting with my boss, and, I told her, like, I have a young child, and sometimes, like, that means, like, I have to stay home, and there's a lot of flexibility. I work in an office now, I don't work from home, um,
uh,
and so in that too, I have gotten a lot of pieces of myself back that I had lost being around people who are my age and being around, so something, um, that I feel is really it's different kinda different to talk about, but, like, my experience in my life has been kind of like that I felt like I was too native to be around the white kids in like, the white people in my area, and, like, I always felt like I stood out like a sore thumb, right? Because I was, like, very
uh,
obviously, like, not the same. But then, I don't speak my language fluently. I don't and then I so to feel like I don't fit in with non-Indigenous people and then to feel like I don't fit in with my own people was kinda
uh,
like it put me in this really weird, like, in between. So I felt like that my whole life and feeling like I don't belong or don't fit in. And so now
mhm, mhm.
I am around people who are my age, who are from my community or, like, from surrounding communities, and we're passionate about the same things, we have similar beliefs, we have similar values and stuff like that, and that's been really empowering for me, so it's like I have, found pieces of myself now in a way that I didn't when I was a stay-at-home mom, so I feel like
Mhm.
I feel like I say that I would love to be home with him, but I also do love that he goes to school, he has his own friends, he has his own little routine, like that little bit of independence
Yeah.
that he's gotten. I just miss, like I do miss the quality
Well, yeah, you
time.
miss it. You because your heart, you love him, and
Mhm,
it's like that part of us, like that mom guilt almost of
mhm,
like, well, I should be at home with him. I should be, all these I should be things. Like I definitely struggled with that guilt too of like the accommodations I needed. But like there's so many moms in my workplace. And like when your kid is sick or you have to, do whatever to kinda drop and go. It's kinda like it is what it is, and I'm so thankful that my workplace is, like, very understanding of it, but you also just feel so guilty, like, it's like you said, you feel like you need to show up for the people at your work 'cause we work with very vulnerable people in different, sectors, um, and then you don't wanna let, like, your team down, and then but you also wanna be there for as a mom, and like,
mhm.
you're taking on all of it, um so it's just crazy that we feel that way, but it's like, what do our partners feel? Like, do they go through those things? Like, how come we're the ones like I don't want to say we're taking all these risks or we're taking the brunt. You know what I mean? It's like it's not
Mhm.
sacrifices. It's not that. Like, it's our kids and it's we're moms and everything, but like it definitely shows like the different mental load and the different expectations society has on us
Yeah.
compared to like our male counterparts or whatever. Like, it's just so I don't know.
Yeah,
It's
and it
crazy
doesn't
to think
it
of.
doesn't feel fair because like, sometimes, like, it feels like I'm making all these big sacrifices about, like, my time with my son and, like, or also, like, opportunities, like, for work. Like, um, now I'm in this, like, new role, and I really enjoy it, I'm doing really well, I feel really valued as an employee, like, I have a really great team too, so shout out I don't think they're listening, but shout out to them if they are. Uh,
Mhm,
but, like, I really enjoy the work that I do. I really like the people that I work with, and I've had a lot of cool opportunities, like, come my way, and sometimes though, like, you know, when Peter's sick and I was like and I also have to say, like, there's a lot of flexibility with my job. My boss is super understanding. She's
mhm.
not like, "Oh, yeah, your son's sick, like, get effed," like,
Yeah,
she's not
yeah.
like
No, no.
she's like, "That fucking sucks," like, figured out. Like she's super chill. Like she's like, oh yeah, if he's sick, like you can work from home. If he has whatever the situation is, like she's super chill and understanding. But then of course there's that part of my brain that's like, I'm failing. I'm fucking up. It's
Mm,
like I
yeah.
have to go home and be with my kid. But then I do think about
Mhm.
like how unfair it is because it's like I carry like not necessarily about work. I just mean like how unfair it is like to me to be balancing all of these like roles and like Peter just gets up in the morning and goes to work. Doesn't think
And
about it.
doesn't think about any of this. Yeah,
Doesn't think
it's wild, and I I guess I'll just say it. I'm definitely having Brandon on. We've been talking about this for a while. He's on board about doing an episode because we are very in line about a lot of things now in terms of like parenting and all of that. But one thing is that actually this topic where we have some kind of disagreements with, and I think it's just natural because of like how we were both, you know, how I'm a female, he's a male, and how society portrays us and blah 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 blah, right? But like I do see it as like I'm the one that making all these changes and sacrifices and all these things for Evie, but it's like whenever I ask him to take off work for an appointment for I don't know, whatever it is, it's like a big deal. It's like, well, I'm like I wouldn't even second guess it. Even if I just started at the job or
mhm.
whatever, I'm thinking about like my child first. I'm just like, well, if if that employer thinks it's an issue, that's on them because like I have to think about my child and that they need me. So it's like it gets put on me. So like it's just it's that's pretty I don't know. It's just crazy to think.
It's so crazy to think about the difference too, because it's like I said, like in the morning I get up. So when I think about Peter specifically, um, and you know, I do carry the responsibility of taking my son to school in the morning, getting myself
Mhm,
ready, getting us both ready to go to school and work and whatever else. And like he gets up at 6 o'clock, he goes to work at 7. He goes to work for 7 and he's gone
mhm,
before we wake up. And um he doesn't think twice about it, right? Like, if the baby's sick at school, I'm the one they call. If
mm,
the baby is a field trip,
yeah,
I'm the one they call.
mhm,
And I
mhm,
feel like I'm carrying all of this, like, responsibility and mental load around, like, what I'm responsible for him. I will say, though, like, one thing that
mm,
I wanna reference, like I did say, like, I'm responsible for the mornings and the pickups. So, Peter picks him up from, like so I drop him off at school in the morning, and Peter picks him up because that's what's equitable. Peter's
right,
place is closest to where the baby goes to school, and so I told Peter, after, like, a couple weeks of me doing both, I said to him, I was like, "This isn't fair. This isn't equitable." I was like, "In order for this to be, like, I need to feel like you're doing something, and it's not
yeah,
fair for me to do both. So it makes the most sense for you to call your day at 5 o'clock and pick up our son from school.
right,
You pick him
yeah,
up.
that's fair.
I'm not doing it. This is your responsibility now."
And I have to give Brandon some slack,
Yeah.
because he doesn't have a driver's license, so it's not
Mhm.
like, if he did, I'm sure that would be different, like, he would be doing more, and he says that he's like, "Well, sorry, like, I can't really, if I would have my license back, like, I would drive her, I would pick her up, I would do the," and I can't shit on him completely, it's just it's all on me at that point, it just feels like it's all on my shoulders of all I have to kinda drop everything and make all these, like, sacrifices, when it comes to yeah, carrying that load, but I
Yeah.
do feel like and I mean, I'll save some stuff so that when he does come on about, like, what we share in terms of parenting, but, like, it's working out well right now, but, like, when I do go back to, like, work, it's just gonna be interesting to see how we manage that, all of it. I just find it's where I okay, where I struggle with is, like, who what we put value on in terms of, like, "Oh, well, I'm at, like, work where I get paid by, like, an employer, and you're not, you're at home with the baby, so, like, you should be
Mhm.
doing the nights, or you should be doing this and that because I have to go out." It's like it's so then we obviously have different views on what we see as work and
Mhm.
how we value that, right? I think that's what bothers me,
Yeah.
and that's still an issue, I think, within society too, of, like, how we view, like, stay-at-home moms or moms who are at home with a baby versus, like, parents who are out in the workforce getting
Yeah.
paid. I mean,
Well,
yeah,
that's
I'm on unemployment, so I'm technically but I'm not getting, like, paid as much as I would, like,
if you were at work, yeah.
if I was so
So what I so something that stood out to me there is, like, I I I remember when I wasn't working, when I was home on maternity leave after I had Peter, and Peter was working in his construction job, and, he was working really long hours, he was working, like, most times 12-hour days, and he would come home from work, and he's like, "Oh, I just need 5 minutes." And I'm thinking like, "Okay, you were at work for 12 hours and I was just with our son for 12 hours. Do you think that I don't need 5 minutes? Like, you were." And so the other part of it was like, I'm at home with a baby who's screaming and crying, who can't communicate with me. You were at work with your friends, shooting the shit, having a good time, laughing and fucking around, and you're gonna tell
and you
me you're gonna tell me
to go
you need
take
5
a shit
minutes?
by yourself and
Yeah, you get to go sit on the toilet for 45 minutes to take a shit and watch TikTok while I've been here craving your attention and, like, craving human adult connection, like,
uh,
and
like,
so
how
it made
many I just sorry, I just I love the, like, thing about, like, you haven't fully understood it until you took your baby on the toilet with you and took a shit, like, that's
yeah,
the ultimate that shows of, like, wow, we do it all when we're home compared to going
yeah,
out into the physical workspace, like, you get to actually step away and have time to yourself, you get to actually have conversations, you get to, like you don't have to think, you have to, like yeah, you time out your day, but it's not based on,
mhm,
like, a human being that needs you to live, like,
yeah, yeah,
you know?
it's crazy, and so when I think about that, I think about when Peter was working and I was home, and I remember, like, just feeling that, like, he didn't value the work that I was doing at home,
Yeah,
and that also comes from society and, like, whatever else, and, like but I remember, even that first year, like, going back to work, there was a couple times that, like, I'd had a meeting in the office on a Monday, and that happened a couple times during, like, a particular month, and this was when, my anxiety was still really high, and I didn't really trust people, trust people to come and babysit, and it was, like, the middle of a workday, so a lot of the
yeah,
people, like, in my family do work, and it just wasn't feasible, and so I remember, um, Peter I told Peter, I'm like, "Okay, well, I have a meeting at work and, like, you need to stay home today. That's it." And
love that for you.
he was like, "Okay, whatever." So he called off that Monday, whatever. And so but it was like I said, cut because it seemed like a pattern because he'd called off, like, I think it was, like, 3 Mondays in a
Mm,
row. But I remember literally saying to him, I was like, I have to go to work. I can't do anything that's gonna jeopardize me losing my job
mm,
because if I lose my job, I can't pay my bills." And, you know,
yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah, exactly.
life
It's
won't stop, right?
well, and what I'm struggling with right now, in terms of, like, I guess I'm this stay-at-home mom right now. I don't know
Mhm,
what I classify myself as. I'm on maternity leave. I mean, I'm actually pretty excited to go back to work, to be honest. Um, but not because it's nice to have a break from, like, work, right?
mhm,
It's but anyway, um, it's and I was talking about this in therapy last time of the guilt I feel. I'm, like, thinking about how much I'm doing when I'm at home. I'm like what did I do today within, like, terms of, like, cleaning and, like, what's tangible, I guess?
mhm,
And I'm sitting there and I'm, like, overthinking all day, all night about all the things that I should be doing, could be doing. Like, I'm over planning stuff for the podcast. I'm thinking about other projects I wanna do. I'm, like, feeling guilty I can't commit to, like, the advocacy stuff I do on the side, and I'm, like, thinking about all these things I should be doing, could be doing, and it's just, like, driving me crazy. Um, and I can't just accept the fact that I'm here to take care of Maya, like, that's my job. Like,
mhm,
because I put value or we all put value on work as, like, tangible, things that are not that doesn't have to do with parenting. I don't know, it's like, I feel like me just being home with Maya is not enough. It's like if I was with her all day, playing, changing her, soothing her, whatever, watching a little bit of Netflix, doing dishes, I feel like that wasn't enough. I'm like, "What did I even do today?" I'm like
mhm,
I didn't even do anything, although I vacuumed, I did laundry, I called for appointments, I I showered. Like, I took care of a child. Helped her roll over for the first time, whatever. It's like, I'm still like, could be doing more." Like,
Yeah, I think that's just because like, we live
fucking
in a capital
exhausting.
yeah, we live in a capitalist society too that, like, places so much value on, like, a job essentially, so it's like, of course you feel that way after being conditioned to be a
Mm,
cog in this working machine, right? Like, to contribute to
mhm,
the
mhm.
whatever, so it makes sense that you
Yes.
feel that way, and it sucks because, like, staying at home with your kid is, like it is busy, and I remember when I was home, and I remember feeling like I was crazy because I was like, "This is fucking insane," and
Mm.
it really is hard
Like,
work,
what day is it? Like,
like, I remember I would lose track of where I was, like, is it Monday? Is it Wednesday? Where
yeah.
the fuck am I? And,
Mhm.
and the funny part about it is too is, like, the level of responsibility, like, sure, it might have shifted because my son is older now and he maybe doesn't require the same
Mhm.
kind of care that a six-month-old does, but,
Mhm.
my responsibilities as a mom haven't changed because I've gone back to work,
Yeah.
and I that's where I feel it's really unfair because, like, that level of responsibility doesn't carry over, and Peter doesn't necessarily feel that same level of responsibility that I feel. To remember like, oh shit, like, I'm, basically managing a household, managing schedules and stuff like, and I do that at work too. So like,
It's change.
it doesn't
Yeah.
stop and it's really not fair. And the responsibility seems to always fall to me, which is something that I really struggle with. What the
M
hell's my hair? Like,
Mentally too, it's a mind fuck, right? Because your brain doesn't stop, especially when you have ADHD.
yeah.
So
Well,
it's like you have a tab in your brain that you're always like, "What did I do? And what do I need to do? What did I complete? What did I not complete?" Like,
yeah.
oh,
So that constant like level of responsibility, it never shifted for me. And I think that's what I find is like so unfair and why it's such a double standard is like why I'm referred to. Like so, I've gone to school and I did some stuff like I've done, I went and got like some this post secondary or like whatever, I can't remember what it's
mhm.
called, university, but diplomas or whatever. I did education
Education?
yeah, education after high school. Um And, I've done things and, like, I'm starting to build, like, a professional career and, obviously, like, feeling torn about that too because it's like, is there gonna be things that, like, pull me away from,
Mm,
you know, my role as a mom and all this stuff, but then also, like I said too, like, I kind of explained it already too, it's like, I've gotten so much of myself and my identity back, like, which also shouldn't be defined by work. It should have been also defined like, I should have been able to define that through hobbies and friendships and connections and all that
yeah,
stuff, but
yeah, but that's okay, like, yeah,
I will also say that those connections it's okay like, those connections did come from work too, like, I was able to make
yeah,
those new friendships and stuff like that
mhm.
that have been really fulfilling for me, um
But it will also I will say that it'll probably transfer into other things because, like, when you're at work and you're feeling social and you're feeling good about yourself or whatever, like, then you're kind of like, "Oh, like, I could do X or I could do Y, I could do Z." Like, those things are interesting to me. Those things make me, feel
yeah,
joy too. Like, it's almost like, yeah, like a
yeah,
snowball effect, like,
yeah, and it's been really good for me, and I got those pieces of me back, which has been really great, um, but it's like the responsibility's still there. Like, I come home and it's like, "Okay,
mm,
we gotta do the laundry, we gotta vacuum, we gotta do this, we gotta make supper, we do have this." Like, oh my god, the
yeah,
baby's been in a really like, Peter's been in a really fussy stage, so he doesn't really like a lot of food, so it's like, "Okay, if he's not gonna eat supper, what's he gonna do? What's he gonna" and so it's like this constant
mm,
thing of, like, it doesn't
hamster
stop.
wheel.
Yeah,
Yeah.
always, like, I'm always, like, spinning in this little hamster wheel, and I feel like I can't fucking it doesn't stop, and then at, like,
And
8:30 comes around, and I'm just
I
done.
feel bad. I feel bad that I'm, like, not whining about this, but, like, I am fortunate
Mhm.
that, like, comparing I'm comparable to you in the situation. I'm saying, like, Brandon's home right now, like, he's off until, I think he's going back full time in April, and then yeah, something like that. Anyway, he's been off since October, since Maya was born. So I've been very fortunate and lucky to have him here and to kinda do this, like, balancing act of things. But I do still see things being, like, put on me because technically I'm on maternity leave, right? Like, that's my job is to be home with Maya. That's why I'm on maternity leave. although, like, he's also not working, so it's like so all day, like, I'm taking care of her and he's doing other things, like, he's in the basement doing renovations or whatever, but then most he's doing most nights, so that he can do renovations.
Yeah.
Um, so it's just like I mean, we are balancing each other out and we're doing, like, what works for each other, like, him doing the nights makes me a sane person, like, I need I've talked about this before, like, I need a
Oh,
good amount of
yes.
sleep to function, so I'm able to be, like, a present and good, like, mom and good human in the day.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's just I feel like I'm, like, whining, but, like, I at least I do have him here. I'm, like and I'm also scared for him to go back to work. I told him this too. I'm like, "I've almost become dependent on you." Um, and it's just been, like, I like having you around, and, like, he's, like, my rock, and, like, I'm afraid for him when he goes back. I feel like I'm not gonna be able to do it on my own. I feel like I've put so much on him that, like, I'm not gonna be able to do it. Like, I'm already having anxiety
Mhm.
about him going back to work and me doing it all. Like, it sucks that I feel that way about myself, you know? Like,
Yeah, I
yeah.
you're super strong and capable, and, you know, when he does go back to work, that's what, next month?
Yeah.
And Maya's she's a
She's
little bit
5
older now.
months. Mhm.
So, at least it's, like, she's a little bit older. It's not as, like, hard as, like, that first, like, couple weeks or, like, you know, not to say the stage of life isn't her
Yeah.
life isn't hard either, but
Yeah, yeah. No,
it just
it's getting easier, yes.
mhm,
It's just
compared to, like, the
I don't
first 3
know.
weeks where she can't even be left alone because 'cause you're scared she's gonna, you know,
And you're, like,
suffocate or
so
something, you know?
sleep deprived because, like,
Yeah.
they're up, like, every hour. At least she's doing some stretches, but, like, every night is unpredictable. You never know what's going on with them.
Yeah, you've had a
Um
really hard time with your babies and sleep.
Oh my god, I don't understand these girls, man. Why
I
can't
wonder
they
if
just
it's
be
just,
like
like
me and
I know. I really
no,
thought they would be because 'cause you're, like, someone who needs sleep, so I'm like, "How is
at
this
least, like, at least Evie's sleeping now, you know, she's at that age where she's sleeping through the night. Um, but Maya, like, obviously she wakes up because of sleep cycles and, like, she still
Mhm,
needs to eat or whatever, so but I am fortunate that, like, she's not waking up, like, every hour or 2, it's just when she does wake up that often, you know something's wrong.
mhm,
Um But yeah, I get, like I feel like I'm delirious or, like, hungover when I don't get, like, a good sleep. Like, I need a solid couple hour stretches. Like, I just don't do well. I don't know. It's just the way my brain
yeah,
works. So, anyway, we'll see what happens when you go like, we'll figure it out and all of that. It's just, again, my guilt of, like, "Oh, I feel like I need to explain myself all the time."
mhm. Well, to be fair, like, I don't like, this is, like, the stage of life that you're in right now with Maya, like, it is a really hard journey, like, this especially, like, you have a
Mhm.
3 like, an almost 3-year-old and,
Mhm.
um, you know, now, like, a almost 6-month-old little baby, and it's it's a really hard thing to navigate, like, you know, we did kinda talk about that transition from 1 to 2, and, you know, it is hard, it's allowed to be hard. You're not crazy, you're not whining.
No. No. I mean, I'm crazy. It's fine. I'm a little crazy, but
No, you're not, it's hard. Um,
No, no, I just mean, like, as in, like, I'm a little psycho, but that's just what I am. I mean, it
mm,
is what it is. But, yeah, it's all hard, and I'm just getting by day. I'm just kinda figuring it out as I go. Like, there's no
mhm,
special formula of, like, how to do it. I'm just kind of but I'm also trying to do the thing of, like, not feeling guilty of asking for what I need and putting putting things on Brandon, even though, like, he's also the parent. Like, we should be,
yeah, so that comes
you know
back down to, like, that patriarchal stuff too, it's like people don't expect it from men, and, like, that's something that drives me crazy because, like, the responsibility always just falls to us, and so it's like, I now, like I said, I'm in this, like, season of life where, like, I'm, you know, excited about my career and the opportunities that are gonna come from it and
Yeah.
all other stuff, and, um, it's just really not like, it just feels so unfair because, like, especially, like, you know, in the you know, when I think about, like, the '50s, it was like, you know, men had these really great jobs and, you know, made big salaries that could, you know, pay for a whole life, and also the cost of living was so drastically different
Yeah.
that, like, it's
Yeah.
unrealistic and unreasonable to expect that could still happen in that
Yeah.
way. That, because you know, rent mortgages are not $500 anymore.
Just everything, like, everything, the cost of living is just
Cost of living is
it
insane right now.
yeah.
So, just to like, it's just not realistic to expect that, but also, like,
Yeah,
um, the level of responsibility just never, like, shifted, and that's something that, like,
it's
I've really
true.
struggled
Yeah,
with, like, balancing there's, like, obviously there's things that I'm responsible for at work, but then there's also still things I'm responsible for as a mom and, like, as a
yeah.
homeowner, as a just
Mhm.
managing all these things, and it's like, holy shit, like, it's really hard to
It's crazy. I mean,
manage all of it.
we we have, like, progressed in some ways, I guess, but, like,
Mhm,
not completely, like you're saying, about the value that we put on,
mhm.
like a mom versus a dad and in the workplace and all of these things. It's just yeah, I mean, I'm glad that we're not living in the 50s because it's just like, I can't imagine.
Oh, I can't
Like, at
imagine that.
least
Oh.
yeah, I don't know. Where we are is
Well, so that too, like, kinda leads into, like, what, I'd kinda mentioned, like, the time with Peter where I was like, "Hey, yeah, no, I have meetings and, like, it's my salary right now that's paying for our life and our lifestyle," and it's like, so if I don't wanna do anything that's gonna jeopardize me, like, losing my job or, whatever else, so it's like, "I need you to stay home, we don't have anyone to watch him," whatever, and this happened a couple times, and he'd had someone from so this happened, like, I think this meeting ended up falling on, like, a Monday, and of
mm,
course, like, to his supervisor and his team, it kinda looked like he was just playing hokey on Monday for the hell of it, and when he had told he was working with his buddy at the time, he told his buddy, like, "Hey," he's like, "'Cause" so his friend messaged him and was like, "Hey, like, where the hell are you?" And he was like, "Oh, I'm home. I told whoever that I'm gonna be off today because like, I have to be home with the baby." "Well, why?"
mm.
"Well, why are you home with the baby?" "Well,
Why
like,
isn't yeah, why isn't the mom or something, eh?
yeah,"
Like,
and he was like,
that's
"Oh,
it.
well, like, well, we didn't have anyone to watch him, and Ken has a meeting at the office." And I shit you not, his friend said to him that if there's no one she trusts to babysit him, then she should be the one to stay home. And I literally looked at him when he told me that, and I said, "Don't ever bring that person to my house again." And he was like, "What?" And I was like, "Don't no." I was like, "I'm good." I was like "If they're
No.
so concerned," I was like,
Mhm.
"They have to be
As
prepared
a
to pay you what I'm getting paid to be at that meeting and be in this job for today."
yeah,
So and if they're not
like, to
going
be
to,
around
I was so fucking mad. I was like, "How sexist and, like, how I was like, "Keep your comments whatever." Like, I was like, "First and foremost, for your employer to for your in someone at your workplace to comment on your personal life
yeah,
in that regard?
yeah,
Ooh,
that's a whole other level, but just, like, I don't wanna be around people that have, that, have values like that, like, that view gender roles in that way, like, it's
mhm,
just ick. It's just, like, I don't no,
hard
like, no
ick. I
thanks.
was like, "Ugh."
Yeah,
So
no.
you're gonna tell me that
Yeah.
I need to stay home. Get real. He's a
It's
parent.
just it is it is scary to think that we're still living like, we're talking about, like, "Oh, at least we're not in the 50s," but it's, like, sometimes I think it's hard to move away from those views, and I think we almost put it on ourselves too. It's hard to
Mhm.
because like you said, like, we're conditioned this way. Like I was saying before, how I'm thinking about what I did in the day, and I'm feel like I didn't do enough if I didn't do all these tangible things that are, like, obvious around the house. Like, just being a mom doesn't feel like enough to me. Like, I feel like I didn't do enough, and I feel shitty. I get anxiety. I almost feel like I have to over-explain myself to Brandon, like, why I didn't do anything today, but it's like,
Yeah.
what I did was enough today. Like, you wanna like, I think it'd be important to do, like, a day in the life or whatever, from our perspectives because it's, like, not edited in the way of, like, this is a routine, but it's we don't stop. Even if I find, like, even if I'm sitting there with Maya in my arms, I'm not stopping. I'm trying to soothe her. She's cranky, she's whatever, she only will contact nap or, like, I have to hold her a certain way, I gotta do this, it's like you're timing their naps, you're timing it doesn't
Mhm.
and you're not just, like, hanging out with your buddy, like, it's
No, it's not. And I remember, like, I used to feel so cranky when he would like, when Peter would come home from work and he'd be like, "Just need 5 minutes. I had a
you
really
need
hard
5
day." And
minutes.
I'm like, 5 minutes from what? First of all, you had a 15-minute drive home where you got to sit and fucking be in your own thoughts and not have to talk to anybody and listen to
Yeah.
music at the volume that you wanted to.
Yes.
Second of all, you also worked with people, like, that were your friends that you got along with, and you're gonna
Have
tell me you
normal
need 5 minutes?
conversations.
You got to have normal adult conversations all day. What do you mean you need 5 minutes? And I'm like,
Oh my god. It's
I've been
crazy,
dealing
eh?
with a yeah, I've been dealing with a friggin' newborn child who doesn't know how to communicate with me and only knows how to cry. Like,
Oh, and
what do you mean?
so that's what I mean in terms of, like, the value that we put on, being in the home, parenting versus, like, being out in the world, getting paid by an employer to work, like, how much value we put on each. It's just I would just like those people to be at home with a child all day by themselves, like, for a full week, and then come and say what they think to me. I bet you they'd be really excited to go back to work.
Yeah, and that's what I mean too. It's like when we're not here to take care of our children, we have to pay somebody.
Mhm, mhm,
And
and
so
those
that's a full-time job.
somebodies yeah, it's a full-time job for them, and they're not just taking care of our children, they're taking care of, like, whatever depending on if they're in, like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like a
Like a
day home or
childcare
like a
center, yeah,
daycare? Yeah, depending
like
on,
a
like, the
childcare
ratio to
setting.
whatever. Yeah, like, there could be 5 kids, 10 kids, like, I don't know, like, I say that to these daycare workers, I'm like, "I don't know how you guys do it." Like, I couldn't, like, there's no thanks, no thanks. Don't
So that was something that I talked about a lot too, like when I was in school. Everyone kinda like I truly, for ECEs, my hats go off to them because that would be so
Ooh,
overstimulating. I have one child
right?
who screams and hits and flails and tantrums and whatever
Mhm.
else. And so for the people who choose that as their career path, my hat is like, ooh, my hearts go out to
Like,
them
times
because
5, like,
literally. And I have a
how?
good kid.
Like,
My kid is like Peter is a good boy. He's a toddler, but he can also be very sweet. Like, and he sometimes has like he can be the sweetest little boy. He can also be a little menace sometimes, like when he's going full blown
well,
temper
yeah.
tantrum. But you know, there's kids who have a lot more physical lash outs of like punching and kicking and
Mhm.
biting and whatever. I do not know how people I don't know how they deal. So if you have an ECE in your life, please hug them because they deserve it. But I remember when I was in
Yeah,
school,
and
they would
no,
say
I was
like,
gonna say they're not even paid enough, I would say.
"No, they're not. They're not even paid enough. They don't even get paid what they should be," which is a whole other issue. But then I remember when I was in school and everyone was like, "Oh yeah, no, like there was this girl, she was really like passionate. She wanted to work with kids. She wanted to work with kids." And I was like, "I don't, I have no interest in that." And they're like, "What?" And I was like, "Yeah, no, I don't want to work with other people's kids. I'm good." And she's like, "What do you mean? Like, it's so rewarding. It's so whatever." Da, da, da. I'm like, "That's cool for you. I'm not interested." And I was like, "I wanna have kids." I literally said, I was like, "I know that I wanna have kids someday." So the idea of having my own kids to come home to after working with other people's children all day, I'm good.
No.
So,
But can you
truly
imagine, like, you're all day working with kids and you have to come home to your wow.
no.
Yeah, definitely have a whole different respect for these ECE workers now, like, that
Yeah.
yeah, whole
It's
different
wild to me. But I even just mean, like, too, like, for to just kinda, like, talk about again, like, when we're not taking care of our children, like, regardless of if it's in a childcare setting or if it's literally just having someone come to your home, because like, this week,
Mhm.
Peter's on lunch break, and I have to pay somebody to come babysit my kid, or I have to take time off from work, or and
Yeah,
I don't have
yeah,
vacation time um to do it. So I'm probably gonna end up working from home this week, which is whatever. But
mhm,
I have to pay someone to come watch my child
mhm,
because I can't do it.
mhm.
And
Yeah,
so
see?
it's and that in and of itself should be like almost enough too for people to to recognize, like, it is a full-time job, it's just not something that there's, like, a tangible, like there's not, like, another body being like, "Here's your money," other than, like, the government,
Yeah.
but for
Like,
paying
this
maternity
is what
leave.
you did all day, like,
Yeah,
kind of thing, like, "This is the progress you made, these are the things you accomplished today," like,
yeah,
we're not
yeah.
getting that, but like I said, the reason why I'm looking forward to going back to work is because
Mhm,
it's just so mentally exhausting and draining and just emotionally taxing, like, wow, and I know that when I go back to work, I will probably be putting value on my work and on parenting. I won't be thinking about all the things I'm doing and not doing because
mhm.
I'm gonna know that I'm doing enough, which isn't that crazy that, like, once I'm back to, like, work, I'm gonna be like, I'll feel okay with what I'm doing because I'm at work. Like, but
Yeah,
right now,
it's
I don't feel
crazy.
like I'm doing enough because I'm home. Like,
Yeah, it's crazy, eh?
I
It's
just
so, that reminds me
yeah.
too, because like, this idea of, like, this like, moms are you know, th I mentioned this, like, idea of, like, this feeling of, like, being on, like, this perpetual tightrope and trying to balance
Mhm,
everything and all of the things and, constantly feeling like I'm falling short and, feeling like I'm not good enough, or I'm not doing a good enough job in some areas of my life, and I remember I had a conversation with a friend of mine and, um, I remember talking to him and telling him, like, "Man, like, do you ever just feel like like, you're not doing enough and, like, that, you know, you're feeling like you're failing at something?" And he literally looked at me and he's like, "No." He's like, "I know that I'm doing" basically, he was like, "I know that I'm doing the best doing the best that I can." And he's like, "So, like, what more can I do?" He's like, "I think that's just something that, like, women struggle with." And
mm,
I was like, "Why the fuck did you have to say it like that to me?" I was like, "Damn." I was like so I really truly just think it is, like, a gender difference of, like, like,
yeah,
I find men just don't think about things the way that women do, and, like, I really don't wanna
no,
be like I don't wanna say that, like, they can learn, and they should, but
yeah, yeah,
they just haven't been conditioned this way, like, I know that, like, that's something we talked about
exactly.
too, is, like,
It's a
men
cycle of, like, what
yeah,
yeah,
we talked about it before, like, absent like, the generation before the generation
mhm,
we're in right now either was, like, around, like, physically absent fathers or, like, mentally absent fathers, so, like, they're just not
yeah,
aware. They're so you like, women for the last, like, couple thousand years have just been carrying the fucking emotional labor, mental labor of motherhood, of, being a wife, being a
mhm,
partner of the house, whatever, and men are just now being like, "Oh shit, there's so much more to this than I thought."
yeah,
But they also just don't think about it the way that we do because they haven't been conditioned to
yeah, and
or taught to,
I
which
just
really
hope it
sucks.
I hope it continues to get better or changes. I don't know if it will, if it's just something that's gonna, like, stick because, like, men are getting the upper hand here, and it's like, why change a good thing?
Mhm.
Maybe it's what they're thinking, I don't know. I'm not trying to speak
Yeah.
for all men, but, um,
Some men do
yeah.
recognize the difference though, like, some men do see that, like, how, I don't know about, I've seen it on TikTok anyway, that there's been some men who do see I don't know, I don't really take a lot of what TikTok says for what it's worth anyway, because there's, a lot of shit we don't see, but
Well, it's filtered, right? So
well, yeah, and that's the
to
whole reason we do this, is to share the real shit, and, you know, I
yeah.
I started a family with a really good guy who still has a lot to learn in terms of
Yeah.
responsibility and stuff, but doesn't make him a bad person, just
Mhm,
means he has
mhm.
to he has to figure some of that stuff out on his own, right? But
But we had talked about this earlier, like, I wanna make this last point of how people will you see these dads doing whatever they're doing, and it's like, "Oh, such a good dad. Like, you're doing so much. Like, you're so good. Look at what you're doing." Yeah, right?
holy fuck. Oh,
And, like, we do it ourselves. We're like, "Oh, we have such good partners, they're getting so much better. Like, they're learning,
yep,
they're growing, they're supporting us. I'm so grateful for my partner." But it's like, what do we get that? Like, are we getting that applaud? Are we getting 'cause, like, and my therapist said this to me in our last session because I was like, "Oh, like, I'm just really grateful for Brandon, like, he's doing the nights, he's doing this, like, he's really helpful," and she's like, "Do you think he takes a second to, like, think about all the things that you're doing, and, like, is he pointing out all the things that you do in a day?"
Mhm,
No. Like
mhm.
like
Yeah, the that's the oh, it drives me nuts. It's such a fucking double standard because like, I literally I go fucking nuts, trying to make sure that, like, everything is great, everything is perfect for my son, and I'm doing everything I'm trying to do everything right and, like,
Mhm,
oh, making sure his stuff is all whatever, and then it's like, if I take my screaming child to the grocery store, I'm often given, like, dirty looks of, like, "Ugh," like, she can't control her kid almost, like but then Peter puts him in the fucking car seat or something, and they watch him go to the grocery store with the baby, and they're like, "What a perfect dad." And I'm like
look at you handling that. Oh,
and I'm like,
just yeah.
"You" and, like, Peter and so he sees it too, and I'm doing it again, but he has literally said, he's like, "I've seen the way that people will talk." He sees the way people talk to him or talk about him,
Mm,
and they're like he's like, "I do the bare minimum. I show up and I'm here." And
mhm,
people are like, "Oh
mhm,
my god, he's such a good dad. He's such a good
mm.
he's such a good
Hey,
whatever."
at least he recognizes that, that's good.
He's like, "I'm not doing" like, he's like, "I" and, we've had struggles and whatever, and
Mhm,
he does know how drastic the scales have been shifted,
yeah,
um, and in terms of responsibility and whatever. So he does recognize, like, that people, give him a fucking standing ovation for doing the bare minimum, and he's like, "What?" And then he's like, "But" and it's so, like, invalidating to me because it's like, I have done so much in the last, like, especially
mhm,
like, the last 3 years, and it's almost always
mhm,
met with some kinda, like, question or, like, criticism of, like, "Well, should you have done it that way? Could you have done it
yeah,
better? Oh, it's like,
mm,
why is your baby not wearing a jacket in the car seat? It's outside, it's so cold." But then, "Oh, why is that baby wearing that jacket in the car seat? Because, if you get in a car accident, that could really hurt your child because that jacket's so thick, it's not really, like"
mm,
whatever, and it's like I feel like as a mom, I'm always met with all these, like, questions of my judgment and my
yep,
character and my whatever, whereas, like,
mhm.
no one
Amanda just has
fucking
to go out, like you said, Amanda just has to take the child out to the store, and it's like, "Oh my god," like
"Oh my god, he's such a good dad. He picks him up from school. Such a good
yeah.
dad."
Or, like, single dads who parent their child without, full-time or whatever.
Mhm.
It's like, single dads are like, "Ooh," like,
Oh, yeah.
"Single dad? Oh my god." But a single mom?
I
I
even
wonder why
I've
she's a
actually
single mom.
yeah, I've literally joked. I do have, like, a friend who is navigating, like, that life of being a single father, and I've kind of, like, thought to myself, I'm like, "Damn," I'm like, "People are gonna see him at the grocery store and, like, flock to him like fucking candy because he's with his kids,
Yeah.
right? Like, there's women who would prey on that and whatever, but whereas if, like, a single mom is out, it's like, "Oh, well, like,
It's
what's
like,
wrong with her? What did she do? Oh, that's, like, whatever." But it's like,
stay away from that."
stay away
Yeah.
from her, she's got problems, whatever else, and
It's
it's like,
true. But
it's
you
not
see that even in movies, how it's
mhm,
glamorized of, like, a dad or a man who's out with, like, a baby. It's like, "Oh my god." But then,
I
like, a
know.
mom is with a baby and they just walk by like it's normal, right? So, mic
It's
drop.
such a it's literally bullshit, and I'm so tired of it, Peter Peter, like, has recognized it too, and he's tired of it himself because he's like, "I'm not doing anything that's, like, groundbreaking." He's like, "I'm just trying to show up." And he
Just being a
recognizes
parent.
too yeah, he's just being a parent and figuring that out or whatever, but, obviously, like, there's still things that he needs to learn, which is,
Yeah. Which is
without saying.
I guess it is what it is because, unfortunately, I guess we have our in-laws to blame because they're the ones that no offense, I'm sorry. I'm not gonna, like, give excuses to people, but
No, it's the truth.
they were responsible for raising their children, and that's the way they were raised, and we're over here trying to break all these fucking cycles, and we're trying
Mhm.
to, like, raise their children into these respectable men
Yeah,
as we're
um,
raising our kids too.
as we're raising our kids, as we're trying to break our own cycles, as we're trying to, heal our own trauma and deal with our own shit, and it's so hard because
Oh
like,
my
it just
god.
sucks too,
Yeah.
like, because it's like, I really, really wish that I wanna see more of those, like, empowering women and, you know,
Mhm.
whatever, and I sometimes find myself kinda bad for it too, like, I do see myself like, my brain kinda go like, "Oh, what's that?" And I'm like, "Stop it."
Yeah. Ugh, I know, but we can't at least we're aware of it, right? Like,
Mhm.
you don't wanna fall into that, like, narrative of, like, continuing it and kind of feeding into it, like, at least we're there to, like, recognize it and do something
Yeah,
different and try to,
I'm
like,
trying to be really
change it.
intentional too about, like, the way that I'm interacting with people. I'll never forget the day that I seen a mom with her 2 kids by herself in a store, and
Mm,
her little one was having a temper tantrum, and everyone's giving her, like, dirty looks and looking at her, and I remember
uh,
I literally just I went up to her and I was like, "You're doing a good job."
mm.
And she looked
Oh,
like she was gonna
you're
cry.
awesome. I'm sure
'Cause I
she
was like
loved that.
'Cause I literally think about it and I know how uncomfortable that feels, like, I remember there was a time at the grocery store, like, I felt like, like, Peter's crying 'cause he wants something that we didn't like, that we weren't getting, like, and I'm like, "Okay, cool," and, like, all these people are kinda just staring at me and, like, giving me dirty looks, and I'm like, "Hey,
Mhm.
cool, this fucking sucks." I have a lot of social anxiety too, so,
Yeah.
and like I said, it's like, it's just not fair because the double standard of it all is that Peter can just do the bare minimum and, fucking take the baby out
Yeah.
and no socks and no hat on in the middle of winter, and they're like, "Oh my god, he's such a good father," and then it's like, if I forget to zip up his sweater, it's like, "You're the worst mom, your son's gonna get pneumonia and die because of you," and I'm like, "You're fucked in the head."
It's but your point of how we look at other moms or women, in a different way now because we get it. Like, it's true. Like, I'm trying to pay
Yep,
more attention and be more intentional to the moms than I am like the kids or before I would have been like, oh, like, how old is he? How old is she? So cute. Rah, 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 rah." But now it's like,
mhm,
I'm talking to the mom directly. Like, how are you
yeah,
doing? And like trying to just like kind of make things like normal, like these topics of like how hard it is to be a mom and, lack of sleep and da da da, like all the things, like and not feeling embarrassed about your kid, whatever they're doing in that moment. And like I'm like, I totally get it. Like
it's
I
super
think
hard.
that just kind of makes but it also I think it makes a difference. Like if we keep spreading, if that keeps being like spread out of us just like you said, being more intentional to like other moms and like recognizing them and noticing them because like, who knows how much of an impact that can make on, like, just themselves that day or, like, how they're, viewing themselves or whatever. I know it would have made a difference for me back when I was a first postpartum mom and
Yeah,
no one could give 2 fucks about me. No, I can't say everybody. I can't say everybody,
yeah,
but some people.
yeah, no, it's super important, and I think, like, it's important for me too to say, like, I do I recognize, like, my behavior, like, before I had kids of, like, I would probably kinda, like, give a, like, side eye to the mom with the,
Mhm.
screaming child in the grocery store, and now I'm,
Mm.
like, trying to be really intentional and recognize, like, people's efforts and, um, remembering how I felt and how alone I felt
Yeah.
when I was going through it too, and even still sometimes, like, some sometimes, like, when we were walking through the mall and Peter's having a temper tantrum, I'm like, "Fuck, man," and people are giving us dirty looks, I'm like, "Do you think this is what I wanna do? Do you think I wanna fight with this little human?" Yeah, I'm sure it's an inconvenience for you to listen to for 5
Yeah.
minutes, but I have to sit in the car with him on the drive home, so,
Wait, do you wanna
like,
deal with it?
do you wanna deal with this screaming child who oh my god, and it's just, like,
Oh,
I
it's
think
so
that people
true.
forget, especially, like, people who aren't in it anymore, right? Like, it's so quick and easy for
Yeah.
people to pass judgment, especially from other generations, like, who, you know,
Mhm.
just didn't take the kids in public in that way, but, like,
I
y
guess, yeah, or they
I don't
forget,
know.
or like you said, they didn't do all these things, like, some things weren't normalized or weren't accepted, and I don't know, it is a shame that we're all most of the time being judged by women who are also mothers, It's like,
Mhm,
that's what kinda gives me the ick where I'm like, "You did this, like, you are still a mother, but you were a
mhm.
first-time mom, you were learning all the things, you were vulnerable too at one point, but, like, you're over here saying these things and judging me and giving unsolicited advice, and, like, it does
It's just
suck.
yeah, it sucks,
Yeah.
and I'm sure you watch Bluey because I know Abby went to bingo for Halloween, so there's that
Yes.
episode called Baby Race that makes me cry every time I watch it,
Yes.
still to this day, and you know what? I think about the way that okay, they were so intentional with the way that Coco's mom, like, said that, and it makes my, like, oh, um I'm sure as moms, like, people know what episode I'm referring to, so I don't wanna, like, go into,
Yeah.
like, the long and short of it all, but, like, Coco goes and tells Chili, who thinks she's failing as a mom at the time, that she's doing a great job, and that's kind of, like, the energy that I wanna have giving like, I wanna give to other parents and other moms in, this phase of their lives, and, I think it's really
Yeah.
natural for us to kinda second guess and, like, feel like we're not doing it that we're failing or like, obviously, like, we're not perfect, we're humans, and, like, that's part of this experience too is, like, that we're growing and learning and whatever, improving
With
with
our
other
children.
with our children and healing in a way. So
Mhm.
just it's just really hard to not feel those things sometimes, and, like, even for me now saying I do wanna try to empower other women and whatever, like, I still do feel that way sometimes. I still feel like I'm falling short, like, I'm like, "Okay, I'm falling short as a
Yeah.
mom," like, I'm not as patient with them or whatever, like,
Mhm.
today he kept hitting Bear. He kept hitting Bear over and over and over and over and over again, and after the final time, I literally turned around and I was like, "Stop hitting my dog."
Yeah.
Like, and I said it loud and stern to him, and he was
No,
like
but hey, it's okay. I raised my voice today too. Like it's like
and
we're not perfect. We're just human.
we're just human, and we can't keep holding ourselves to this, like, unrealistic, unattainable standard of being perfect because it's just not possible, and if that's the standard that we're gonna hold ourselves to, we're always gonna feel like we're falling short. The best that you can
Yeah.
do is enough,
Yeah.
and that's
Love
it.
that.
Like,
That's like I feel like that's a perfect place for us to maybe end this on unless there was anything else you're wanting
no, I think that's it.
to chat
I just
about. But that was like a beautiful message, Kennedy. Ah,
but
no.
it's the truth because like, you can't hold yourself to that because it's just not possible, and you're always gonna feel like you're failing. And you have to make that
No,
clear,
it's true.
conscious effort for yourself to just know that if you're doing your best, whether that's 100% or
Mhm.
10 like, if
Mhm.
you're giving
Mhm.
100%, great. That's your
If you're
100%, but
100%, yeah, your 100% could look different to someone else. Like you said,
and it
you're
could
going
also
back to
look
that
different.
episode of the yeah, like that of that the baby race or whatever. Like everyone's journey is gonna look
Mhm.
different because we're living different lives and
Yeah, and sometimes your 100% can look different on different days. Like, you could give 100%
yeah.
on Monday, and that's great,
Mhm.
that's your 100%, but if you can only give 10% on Tuesday, then that's still giving 100% because that's all you have.
Yeah, it's like there shouldn't be like a measurement of like what you
Mhm,
did or where you're at or da da da. It's like you said, we're always trying to get to this like goal or this achievement or this whatever. But it's like if you're always doing that, you're always gonna feel like you're not enough. Like
yep,
it's no, I love that. And that just like another to make another point, like it reminds me of the book, Burnout that I had told you about. Like
yeah,
I don't
yeah,
know when I read that, I almost like want to read it again because there's so many good points in there for moms out there to check it out. But yeah, we gotta be easy on ourselves and on each other.
yeah,
We're all in this together in different ways, different
yeah,
levels.
and we're not alone, and that's the whole reason that we started this was because at the
Yeah.
time we did feel alone, and,
Mhm.
if us sharing all of this stuff helps other people realize that they're not going fucking crazy, then we're doing something right, whether, you
Yeah.
know, like, wherever this takes us, great, but
Yeah,
the whole point.
exactly. Like, even if it's 1 or 2 people that, like, we're resonating with or that, we made, that person feel, like, not alone, like, that's, like, a win for us because, I know how it felt, to be, alone, and sometimes there's some days that I still feel alone and I feel, like I'm not, taking or I'm not seeing or being seen as, like, worthy or whatever, like,
Mhm.
so, yeah. Us moms gotta look out for each other.
Yes, and that's what this was all meant for, so I hope that, you know, you can take what you need from this episode, and you can leave the rest if
Mhm.
you want, but, just always remember that your best is more than enough, and I want you to hold that too, Tara, because
Yes, you too. You're doing a good job. Whatever you're doing is enough.
yeah,
Whatever you're not doing is good. it's fine too.
Yeah, I always you know what? I always say if I forgot about it if it's something I forgot today, it probably wasn't that important.
There you go. I
Yeah,
can it can wait till tomorrow
yeah, I
or the
think
next
too,
day.
like, showing yourself, like, the same like, something I've been trying to practice with myself, and I wanna include it in this, is, like, to show yourself the same grace that you would get the same grace and kindness that you would give to
Mm,
your children,
mm,
and not
mhm.
necessarily trust that inner voice in your head because it's what you've learned from, our past experiences with trauma and whatever else, like, that's
Yeah.
conditioned us to think this way in this, like, maybe, like, critical,
Mhm.
um, mindset, so
Yes.
trying to practice talking to yourself the way that you would talk to your child
Yes, that's a good point too. And, like,
and
of
show
what
yourself
even
that grace and love.
your inner child would have wanted
Mhm.
to hear, yeah. Love that. Well, thanks so much, everyone, for following along and listening, and, I'm excited for what's next.
Yes, me too. Really excited.
Bye.